Tori and I have had some digital gremlins today, and thanks for your patience with us. We are going to kick it on today and talk to you about parenting in the digital age. This is our 3-part series. Tori and I are doing as a pilot to just gauge how parents are reacting to this, how much it's needed in the world, which it seems to both of us and in our lines of work that it is something parents are really struggling with. So today is session 2. We're going to talk about tech talk that builds trust, how to talk about screens without shame. And I am Heather McElroy. I'm a parent guide and mentor, and my company is called Momentor Parent University.
And I am Victoria Gwilt. I am a youth and family therapist in Charlotte with CLT Counseling.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging with me. I'm so glad we can get this done and work through this. So we had recorded all of this earlier and then realized I had not gotten it to start. So we are super excited to go from here. And I'm going to flip screens. Tori, let me know if anything goes weird on the StreamYard side, because I'm going to start flipping slides.
Sounds good.
Yay! So again, welcome. Parenting in the digital age. We're going to talk about trust and screens without shame today, how to talk to our kids. There's a worksheet download here at this QR code on the screen. So feel free to snap that. It'll show up a couple more times if your phone isn't ready in the next few slides. But it's just a PDF you can download, you can print it, or just look at it on the screen as you work. And it's got some fill-ins to be able to work along with us as we share some insights with you today about parenting in the digital age.
And then this is a QR code for a survey that we're giving at each session. If you watch the first session, it'll also be in the third session. This is both for our information to kind of see what holes we might need to fill in the future. Again, we mentioned that this is a pilot, so we just want as much information as possible. But it can also be a good reflective tool as you go through this to see kind of where you start, where you end. And if you want your pre and post survey results, we're happy to send those back to you. So it's just the more information, the more you know. So that's why we've included that there.
Amazing. Awesome. So again, here's the worksheet download if you need it. Every session, I just do a quick introduction and talk about session boundaries. So the very biggest thing that I would love to say is you are brave for being here and being open to asking questions and exploring new tools and techniques during your parenting journey. We all are, we're in this, right? We're going through this journey and none of us came with a manual. So the best thing we can do is tap into really learning tools and practicing those with our kiddos. Boundaries for today are simply safety, kindness, and non-judgment. Always. And we're going to jump right into the programming.
Yeah. We wanted to start with a recent case that kind of has put social media under scrutiny. We've heard a lot about how addictive screen time and social media can be. And the case that's going on right now kind of shows that even the creators know that. I mean, I think everyone in their mind might have known that, right? But this is really putting it on paper that with their memos and documents and stuff that social media companies and gaming companies truly do know that screens can be addictive and are addictive, and that the social media and the likes and the rewards are what the child and teen's brain is craving. And that's why they're trying to get kids hooked at a very young age. They see engagement as a customer, right? And that kind of leaves parents and teens with dealing with the fallout of being a customer and being hooked on these things that they are seeking for the rewards. But it just kind of proves and shows, I guess, and I think maybe it can be a little bit empowering for parents to have that as information as we talk about, parents not failing at this, because it's really the system that's being designed around it. So I like this question that kids aren't kids aren't weak, but the system around them is very strong. It's engineered to keep them engaged. They know that kids' brains are reward on the likes and the engagement, and that's how they're building it. So it's an interesting story to follow, to see kind of behind the curtain of how these apps are being developed, and to give just more context as to, and to show truth in the struggle of social media.
I love it. Yes, absolutely amazing. The other thing that we just think about too is like the developing brains plus this engineered engagement really creates tension in our households and in our families. And our role as parents is to be that calm leadership and to connect with our kiddos and to really stay up on digital literacy, both for our own information and for our kids, and helping them navigate some of this, or navigating it together.
Mm-hmm.
So this is brought to you by, I should have looked this up again. At the end of the document, there is a website for the company, and I'll point that out when we get there. The company that created this, and they are just really doing a lot of research and staying ahead of what's happening with what's happening in technology. And one of the graphics I thought was really powerful to share with you all was their modern childhood being out of balance. So 7.5 hours a day is what the average child age 8 to 18 is spending on screens. And that was updated as of June 2025 by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. Like, that's a lot of time a day to be on a screen, especially when we think about, 35 years ago, 0% of our time was spent on the internet. We might have been watching TV, but there was no scrolling and social media. So 75% of our waking hours are now spent connected to some type of technology. And there's no boredom anymore. Kids are not getting the downtime to be more creative. They're being fed really quickly and very high-paced content that makes them enjoy being engaged and not constantly on, right? So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children put out a statistic that really kind of rocked me. 100,000 tips are received and reported each day to them. And every day those are victims. Those are 100,000 victims of blackmail, of online threats or bullying, of promotion of suicide, drug trafficking, human trafficking, eating disorder promotion, sexual exploitation, scammers, those targeting elders, our parents, our grandparents, and financial chaos. So a lot of things are really, something to be aware of as a parent and as an adult, and also just to recognize there's a lot of lack of balance right now, and also enforcing any of this. So Tori, do you want to grab this one?
Yeah. So again, the reminder is that parents are not failing at screens. It's designed to override the developing brain. It's designed to keep kids hooked, get them as customers. And so the goal of this session is to frame the communication around how we're talking with our kids about screens and technology, so that it doesn't feel like it's parents versus kids when it comes to tech, but it can feel a lot more collaborative, and it can feel like parents and kids are on the same side when it comes to navigating and dealing with technology. And so we recognize and we know that none of us are perfect. This is not going to be a perfect conversation. Not every time you try and talk with your kid about screens is it going to be perfect. But the goal is to, again, just kind of give a framework for what the conversation could look like, create some emotional safety, some guidelines, and make sure that we're framing this like it is an open dialogue.
Awesome. So we'll hop right into our invitations. Number one, we're going to talk about shifting from interrogation to curiosity. So an example, we'll just start with that. How long have you been on that Xbox today? How long have you been on your phone scrolling? Can really create defensiveness in our kiddo. It's very judgmental, especially the way that I just said it. And what we want to encourage is to go from that interrogation or judgmental sort of mentality to a curiosity mentality. So, hey, what are you into right now? Or, who are you playing with on your, who are you gaming with right now? What game are you guys playing? What's the purpose of it? What are you trying to do with it? Those are all ways that you can show curiosity, and they don't create a defensiveness in your child, especially with tone, using tone. And also, just if it doesn't land the first time, or your child is still suspicious, which can happen, right? Especially if you've kind of been in interrogation mode beforehand, you can even share with them, hey, I'm working on this for myself, and I'm going to approach this from a place of curiosity. So I really just I'm just curious about what you're doing. It's a strategy. It's not a mood. So it's something that once you start being curious, keep being consistent with being curious, and think of it as not a mood, more of a practice that you're adopting. And then self-regulation is going to be a really big part of adopting that and using that skill. And it's going to model for your children also how to approach things from a curious standpoint rather than a more interrogation or judgmental standpoint. All right. Invitation number 2, lectures now become evolving conversations. And what is an evolving conversation? So if you have a conversation with someone and you continue to tap into that conversation or grow the concept of what you were talking about, that's an evolving conversation. So rather than having a lecture, this is what I just heard, or this is what I just read, or, I know you're on the phone, too many hours a day. We need to stop that. Take that from a lecture to a conversation. Ask your child, like, what they're feeling about their social media, or what they're feeling about their engagement on technology. Establish some rules. Without relationship, those rules without relationships, they breed resentment. So if you establish some rules with your child collaboratively, as Tori mentioned earlier, that helps them adopt those rules and be more engaged with those rules. Again, this is evolving conversation, not a one-time policy. If you approach something with curiosity one day and then the next day you're back to being very judgmental, then that's not going to work for you. So evolving this conversation and using this as a practice that you're continuing. And if you fail, we're going to talk about a tool that you can use if you jump into an old mindset and when you intend to stay with your new mindset. And then safety is always the anchor, right? So feeling safe in ourselves when we're going into this practice, when we're going into talking with our child, and then understanding that we're building a bridge with them, right? Understanding them, being collaborative with them, that's the bridge that we want to build with our kids. So, they might be 10 right now and playing some video games, but when they're 17, you want them to come to you and tell you what's going on with this. That bridge has to be built along the way, and it's not too late. Even if your child is older, you can still begin building that bridge. Invitation number 3, we're going to transition fear-based messaging to emotionally safe dialogue. So fear-based messaging, all of the statistics that I just shared with you, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 100,000 reports every day. Those are obviously good information for us to be educated in and understand what is going on in the world. And also bringing that to our children is not the best way about this. Emotionally safe dialogue with them, talking about it. I just read this statistic and I had no idea there was that much, that many reports in a single day. There's 100,000 people. It really opens up vulnerability and communication for your child. So fear closes that conversation, safety opens it. When you open a conversation with a safe question or a safe dialogue, then your child can participate in that dialogue rather than feeling like they're being talked to or over. And if you do react and are reactive, then it often backfires. So kids go into their underground brain, and Tori's going to talk to that in just a minute, especially with the shame piece. Shame shuts down, safety opens things up. So again, she'll go into that a little more in the brain science section. And we're just going to talk about dialogue as connection, not control. When we are able to have a dialogue back and forth with our kiddo, that gives them the chance to share what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, what they're seeing in their friends group, what they're seeing with their friends' parents. Those are all really good things to be aware of as a parent. Not that it's going to affect the rules at our house necessarily. It just could really open us up to understanding what some of the other parents are going through, and what our children are experiencing. Do you want to share anything else on that?
No, I think that the point of the invitations is, again, kind of like what this slide says, it's the dialogue part and it's the conversation part. And while that seems basic, but a conversation is a back and forth. It's not just one-sided. And so some of these tips and tools and invitations is a structure for a conversation around it. It's not saying that there are no boundaries or there aren't any rules, but it's like, how do we talk about those boundaries and rules in a way that creates buy-in, instead of feeling like they have to push the boundaries or break the rules.
Absolutely. Love it. Well said.
Yeah. So to get into some of the brain science of it all and the big ideas, and now if you're watching today, in session 1, we went a lot deeper into what the brain is going through for child and adolescents, like developmentally, and what stages they're in and how they receive information. But one of the big takeaways is that they are actively seeking social reward. They like the likes. That's instant gratification. Being off a screen is boring, right? Like that might not seem like that's as engaging, or hearing rules around it is not as engaging. So there's really seeking to find the instant gratification, because that's peer connection, that's reward from others, that they can just hold right there in their hand.
Right. And it's not a choice, it's their brain, right?
Right.
That's how their brain is.
Right, exactly. And what we're going to get into a little bit is also like how screens and sleep directly conflict, and how that is also affecting their brain development, so that they are getting what they need in that rest. And as we mentioned, with having an open and inviting conversation, that sometimes shame can feel like that's a reason to shut down, or like I'm doing something wrong, so I need to hide it, or I need to find a way around it, because they are not in the reasoning part of their brain. They are they're in the reward part of their brain. And so part of these conversations is to create connection as a protective and a proactive factor. Instead of feeling like you're reacting in the moment to these conversations or having to think of something on the fly, the idea is, if you already have a really established, strong relationship where you have these conversations going, that can feel like a proactive step instead of a reactive one. So like we mentioned, getting into kind of what their brain is going through as they are developing. No surprise, I don't think, to any parent that's out there, that they lack impulse control a lot of times. They are not looking at long-term consequences, long-term thinking. Even the idea of saying like, oh, I'm taking the iPad away for a month or a year, or whatever you kind of want to do in the moment. They're not connecting those consequences with the actions directly. They just know, you took away something that I was really having fun with, and so how can I get that back? Same with the idea of like just logging off. This is hard for adults too. Like we focus on the kids because that's what this session is for, but it's hard to log off, and we have fully developed brains. So for a kid whose brain is still developing, just log off. It's easy, right? Like, no, it's really not easy. That's very hard for them. They are very engaged in that. Again, that's where they're getting their dopamine, maybe, or, they're looking for that reward. And so just logging off feels like a much bigger conversation than just in the moment, I'm taking it away.
Right. And the neuroplasticity that we were talking about earlier too, like when we have a still evolving or still developing brain, like under the age of the late 20s, mid 20s, that, that's something even those of us whose brains are not as spongy anymore are struggling with. Imagine now you don't have that executive functioning yet in your brain development, and how that looks or feels, right?
Right. It's like what they're used to, and what their brain is instantly going to be like looking for and craving. And like we mentioned in the beginning with the court case and what's going on with social media creators, they know this. They design around this. That's kind of the whole point. And so if you're, parents and kids are struggling around a system that was created to keep them engaged, created to make it hard to log off. So again, it doesn't feel just as simple as log off, because the game or the app was specifically created to make them not want to log off. So again, they're looking for that social validation. They're looking at this as connection too. Like their friends are on it, they're playing it, but they're not getting the in-person social benefits, the in-person social rewards, cues, all of that. But they are still getting the dopamine of getting the likes and still feeling like they're getting respect from their peers because they like the picture, they won the game, or whatever it is. So they're getting it in a different way that we're used to. And so it's going to make it a lot harder for them to just log off if they don't understand why they're logging off. Sleep is an important one to talk about because, again, just like their brains are craving the likes or craving the rewards, but their brains need to be able to fully shut off at the end of the night. That's when they're, storing memories. It's kind of giving that reset. We know sleep is important for like a healthy body as they grow, but it's just as important for a healthy mind. And so not only is it like the blue light that is disrupting their flow and the natural hormones that need to be released at night, but it's also like an emotional stimulation. So if you're saying turn the screen off and go directly to bed 5 minutes later, their brain is still like very actively working. It hasn't had a time to truly log off in the way just turning the phone off is not letting their brain log off. So they're still very activated. Also, if it seems arbitrary or if there's not something set in place, like if they don't know the rule or they don't know the expectation is coming, then that can also create anxiety because they have a little bit of that FOMO. They think that they're missing out on finishing the game or continuing the conversation with the peers or whatever that is. So that's going to keep them at another level of alertness. So again, we know it for if we're thinking about like a growing body, but it also, sleep deprivation impairs the emotional regulation, their learning, the mental health, again, kind of creating more structure for anxiety or depression or feeling like they're missing out, and creating some of that addiction because they don't have the healthy boundaries or they don't know the expectation. And so it just feels like, well, it just got turned off because mom said so or dad said so, and not understanding the reason for them to fully let go of the game or the screen and fully rest and go to sleep.
Right. And Tori, I know you're going to talk next month more about the brain science around addiction. Is it like an hour? Is that like how long?
Yes, good note. Yes, for sleep, they say 30 to 60 minutes is best. I mean, I lean towards 60, especially for younger kids, because again, 30 minutes is, it depends, on what your bedtime routine looks like, sure. But to really give them a full rest, give their brain a rest. They're making, the other thing too is if they're not on the screen, the idea or hope would be that they're making real-time connection, right? Like maybe parents can take advantage of that 30 to 60 minutes to make connections about the day, teach some of those regular in-person social cues instead of just going directly from screen to bed, but gives them a real time to truly log off and get some rest.
Absolutely. Ooh, I have a favorite tool in that realm. When my son was little, there was a company that did every week they came out with a little list of questions to ask at bedtime.
Hmm.
And boy, did we loved that. It was so much
Hmm.
fun. And a couple years ago, I created some. They're actually still on my Pinterest account, my Momentor on Pinterest, and you can download or even just look at them on your phone and use some of those questions. They were a lot of fun for us. But yeah, it
That's a
just
good
kind of
idea.
shifts your gears and has that human connection, and that really helps us as parents to better connect with our kiddos too and learn about them and what they're thinking about and what excites them, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes we don't even realize we don't know certain things about our kiddos. And anyway,
Yeah. Um, so why shame doesn't work, or why maybe like the arbitrary rules or the tone or how we talk about screens might not be clicking right now for some parents and their kids, because it feels like they're doing something wrong. Again, it's about the boundaries and how we create these boundaries. Do the children or does your teen respect the boundaries, or does it feel like something that they could rebel against? If they feel like it's something that's shameful, that they need to hide, they can't talk to mom and dad about it, that feels more secretive, maybe more of like a threat response, where they're not sure how to have a conversation because they just know that they're doing something wrong, instead of it feeling like inviting or understanding why there are rules in the first place. um, that's important for there to be buy-in. They need to understand why it's there anyways. So even if you're saying, hey, I notice you're not getting a lot of sleep, or you're waking up really tired in the morning and we're having a rough time getting to school, we need to go to bed a little bit earlier, turn the screen off a little bit earlier. Even a simple conversation like that doesn't have to be a big huge overhaul of everything that you're doing, but just helping them make connections as to like why sleep is important, and then why turning the screen off would be more important, or why those things connect. Because if you're just taking it away, they're reasoning, they're not in reasoning mode. They're thinking like, how can I get that back? What's the next thing I need to do? And they're not having a full conversation to even understand why. So that part's kind of offline, and instead it's like, how can I get that back? So the lectures during the conflict, again, they're not hearing excuse me, they're not hearing everything you have to say. um literally cannot be processed, because they are thinking about what you just took away and how that feels unfair, or why they're angry or upset about it, but not in a way that they maybe could communicate to you, right? It's just like, well, this is my secret, this is what I have to get back to, and they're going to work really hard to get back to that screen, because that's where they're getting what they want, right? The dopamine. It's kind of like this whole vicious circle, vicious cycle that, hopefully having these conversations along the way as an open dialogue help not not make it like it's a surprising takeaway or reactive takeaway, and it can help them make sense of it all.
right, and bridge that connection. And I can completely vouch for how this works. And even remembering as a child, like, or a teenager, especially when I would do something I like wouldn't want my parents to know I had done, like it was a very different um, kind of reaction or a very different experience than I want my child to have. I really felt like I couldn't tell my parents some things that had happened or things that went on, where I've tried to shift that or change that pattern for in my parenting was with always telling my child he can tell me anything and being open to hearing, what he's trying to share. Like if I think back and think about, going into that threat response where I thought I was going to be in really big trouble, I like to think that he does not worry about feeling like he's going to be in really big trouble unless he does something really naughty, I suppose,
Mhm.
or really concerning. And most of the time, it's just a great way for us to have that connection and know, like deep down, I have his back, right? And I don't think that many of the clients that I work with who are parenting kids now had that experience where they felt like their parents had their back or their parents were someone that they could go to and weren't afraid of sharing things with. So think about like how you want to show up in that space as a parent.
So with these conversations, like what helps? The clear expectations, like we've kind of mentioned, bringing them into the conversation so they understand the expectation, right? It doesn't feel arbitrary. It doesn't feel random. The calm leadership and respectful explanation is big, because in these conversations, you're also modeling how to have a discussion. And so if you can talk about it calmly and you can make sense of it and help them make sense of it, then again, that's going to feel more like a conversation versus like, here are the rules and follow them. When it's something that they really, really want. And giving the autonomy within that too, understanding like, hey, what works for you, or like, what are you liking about it? These are the values that our family has, and why, do you see why this is important? Like, even just those questions, right? So that they can feel like they're part of the conversation. What we talked about earlier, what kind of escalates the power struggles is if it does just feel random and it does feel arbitrary, where kids just want to break the rules so that they can get what they want back. Inconsistent enforcement. Again, if you're saying, I'm going to take that away for a month or a year, are you going to follow through with that? Right? Like, they might kind of pick up on, mom's going to say she's going to take it away for a month, and then I'm going to get it back tomorrow, because screens kind of help everyone, right? Like, if you do need to use a screen, or if your kid does need to use a screen because that's going to save 30 minutes, then they're not making the connection that there's a real like consequence when you take it away randomly. And then that is what creates the emotional reactivity, because it does feel unfair. They don't understand, why are you doing this? Why are you taking away something I like so much? Instead of having a true understanding of it.
And our emotional reactivity escalates the situation even more.
Vicious cycle.
Yes. So we're going to jump into a few tools and wrap up for the day. So tool number 1, we're calling the 3 openers. So these are 3 opening questions, and they can just really deepen your connection and help you understand what's going on with your child. So, and think of a scenario where your child was on a device, and maybe they were playing a video game, for instance, and you just simply ask them, what do you like about it? And maybe we don't ask these questions while they're still playing the device. It would be my experience says that might be better to do when we're at bedtime, or when we're getting ready for dinner, or driving in the car. What do you like about that game that you're playing? What do you like about the app that you're using with your friends? And then what's tricky about it too? Ask them in that way too. What's tricky about it? Opens that up. It's kind of like, what does tricky mean exactly, right? So let them decide what tricky means for that. And if you need to explain it a little further, like what things are you not sure of about it, right? And maybe they'll come back to you and say, sometimes we're on this and, playing this Roblox game, and some other people can get into our room, or, and I don't know them. Or sometimes I'm, on social media and I get this weird message from somebody and they want to be my friend. It's really good information, again, when you build safety into your relationship with them, that they'll tell you some of those things that feel tricky or not totally right with them. And that gives you the opportunity as a parent to go, ooh, yeah, like, I see why that would feel weird to you. Like, let's figure out how to make it so that they can't get into your game, or let's figure out how we can, stop something from happening. And then, what do you wish adults understood? That can be really fascinating to hear from our kids. Like, what things might they really want us to know, but we never ask the question. And I use this all the time in many different facets. When you're talking to somebody who's kind of an expert in whatever it is, right? What question haven't I asked? What do you wish that I understood better about what you do? So asking your child or children, what do you wish adults understood? Even just flat out asking that, it doesn't even have to be about the game. It can be really a fascinating way to kind of look under the hood and think, think a little more deeply about what they're thinking about and bridge that connection and communication.
Another fun tool, the normalizing, right? Doesn't mean endorsing. So if something is hard, or maybe they think you don't understand, you can talk through that. Or if there is something that is hard, like some of these examples, everyone has it. You're the only parent who won't let me, or if the child is upset because they've had a bad interaction online, instead of trying to say like, you know, well, no, you're not the only one who doesn't have it, right? It just kind of shuts down what they feel like they're going through, instead of saying like, okay, like that would be really hard if you're feeling left out, or like, yeah, what am I missing? Do you want to talk about it? These are why we don't have that. Maybe if it does feel like everyone does, this is why I'm making this decision. Again, instead of just being like, yeah, okay, get over it, not that big of a deal. Because it is a big deal for them, whether we agree or not. So again, we don't have to be endorsing and saying they're completely right about it. But it does help them feel like that you're hearing what they have to say. Saying things like, yes, that makes sense. Or I would probably feel that way too, right? If they had a bully online, or a rough online interaction. Yeah, that would be hard. I don't know how I would feel it. How do you want to do it? Can we problem solve this together? Instead of them feeling like they're on their own, just kind of like out there because mom doesn't understand, dad doesn't understand, I have to deal with this on my own. So instead, if you're normalizing throughout these conversations, again, it's an invitation for them to come to you when things are hard.
Yes, and then they'll feel safe doing that too. And you know, one thing that comes up for me a lot too is try to just stick to what the feeling is in the situation, and it's going to resolve or solve at some point later. And I've found this happened a lot with my son, who's now 17. And so like we've been through a lot of different experiences through the different chapters of his childhood. And one of the techniques that I have used quite a lot with him is trying not to fix something, just being with him in a feeling, and then solving it later. If it even needs to be solved later. Maybe it's just I want to be listened to, or I want to vent about this experience that I had where someone said something mean to me online, or, those are also just ways you can bridge that communication with your kiddo.
Mm-hmm.
All right, tool number 3, we'll call this the repair and reset. Rather than reaction, let's practice initiating a repair. And what's a repair? An apology, basically. Begin modeling this and make it an authentic apology. It doesn't have anger, it doesn't have blame, shame. And one of my favorite ways to do a repair and reset is with lightness and laughter, if you can find some too. So think for yourself what a recent moment is that you want to do a repair or redo. You can also make it even more fun and call it an audible if you're in football, or mulligan if you're into golf, or if you have any other ideas for other terms.
For terms, I don't know. No games or fun games are coming to mind. Sorry. I liked your examples. I like the audible and the mulligan.
And do-overs.
Yeah.
We do. I have a client whose son is neurodivergent, and he really reacted well to the do-over. He was like, oh, we can have a do-over. Okay. And as his mom practiced that more, it just became more a part, like a fun banter in their family. And I realized, we don't have to leave that resentment in the air, right? We can have a do-over. We can have a mulligan. So the tool for that, or the script for it, is I realized that I should have I realized that I would like a do-over for how I showed up last night when we talked. I apologize. I'm really sorry that I yelled at you in front of your friends and yanked your device away from you, right? Or told you you're never gonna leave your bedroom again. Like, be really specific and own, especially if you said something that you aren't proud of. By the way, that's great modeling for them. And then the last piece of this is I'm working on. Like I'm working on how I show up when I feel angry inside. I'm working on not being a yeller anymore. I don't want to yell at you. Ugh, right? When you can really say to them that you are actually practicing or working on something yourself, it again helps them see that that's something they can do as well. And it helps them engage more with you because you're vulnerable. And as a parent, we can pretend all day that we know all the right things to do. And essentially none of us came with a manual or any way of like really knowing that everything we do is the right thing. So go ahead and apologize and offer repair when it's needed. It's really beneficial to your relationships, not just with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. And part of that is that no one is perfect, right? And that's kind of what you're modeling for your kid is even in those reactive moments, like it's okay to make mistakes. Let's try again. Come back to it. We don't have to be perfect each time. Again, it doesn't have to be this huge, big thing to say, hey, didn't like how I showed up in that. Let's try again. But it's keeping the conversation open because we're wanting to build connection. And that is the strategy, is having the connection and the conversation instead of it feeling like we're in the moment having to make up our mind about something or feeling a lot of pressure on how we're handling each interaction. Giving your child and yourself the space and the grace to make mistakes and come back to it. And so each one of those conversations that you have is an investment for the next one. And you're modeling and you're showing them how to show up. So having that as the base of your relationship, that's the intervention. And that's what can be the foundation for these big conversations, big ideas, and the things that get hard along the way.
I love it. So ask yourself one curious question right now. Use a calm tone. Well, you can ask yourself one curious question. I'm going to ask you to ask one. But when you do ask your children curious questions too, keep a calm tone. Be very predictable. And as you do this and practice it over and over, stay consistent with it. As I said earlier, practicing it and, ask shame-free questions. Validate their feelings. Be authentic in your repairs and resets. And then, ask the homework we'll share today is ask one curious question about your child's digital world, and don't give any advice. Don't try to fix anything. You may even just ask them how you can support them. And then like, how might an explanation change the vibe? Like talking about why things are happening or what you believe, your values, your understanding of something that they're playing, and asking more questions. So an explanation or asking more questions. And then where could validation enhance that connection? Where could you validate your child and give them understanding so that they don't feel shamed or threatened or scared to come forward and tell you what's going on in their digital lives? These are a few authors. Moving forward, so in case you weren't on our first call, please feel free to go back and check that out. It was recorded on January 29, and it can be found on the YouTube link. I'll put some links below this video when we post it. And that session was talking about digital boundaries that actually work. And then our upcoming session on March 26th will be about empowering identity in a world of comparison. And we're going to have a big piece on the brain science for that one around addiction to screens. Yeah. So these are some of the authors and leaders we reference, and like the Balance Project at Life is who shared the graphic that I showed you on an earlier slide. I think it was 6. And then these are some QR codes so you can access content and information from both Charlotte CLT Counseling and Momentor Parent University.
Yeah, Thanks for joining.
Yes, thank you so much. Here's the upcoming sessions. And feel free to put questions below the video or share anything specific that you've really enjoyed or are adopting or trying out and how it's going. We'd love to hear from you.